Hello, loyal Krista Makes a Podcast listeners. When one of us falls, we pick each other up, and we need your help. Lou Kohler, lead vocalist of Sick of It All, was recently diagnosed with esophageal cancer. A GoFundMe has been set up to help Lou and his family during this difficult time. Touring working-class musicians depend on being on the road, and for now, that is an impossibility for Lou, the band, and their crew. If you have $1, $5, or $10 to spare, everything helps. Much love and positive energy to Lou and the whole Sick of It All family. Search Sick of It All GoFundMe to donate.
Having choices is good, and checking accounts are no exception. At Sandy Spring Bank, we have a variety of checking options and make it easy to choose based on your needs. Mobile deposits and payments, interest checking, or checking with no fees or minimums. Best of all, we'll help you select the account that suits your life. What's your next financial destination? Sandy Spring Bank. Visit sandyspringbank.com/checking. Member FDIC.
More than just a dream. More than just a dream.
Hey everybody, today's guest is Fitz, lead vocalist for the Los Angeles, California indie pop neo-soul band Fitz and The Tantrums. Together we take a deep dive and dissect the writing, recording, and inspiration behind the hit single, Out of My League, taken from their 2013 album, More Than Just a Dream. Fitz was amazing to talk to, and he is truly an inspiration in perseverance and tenacity. After making music for most of his life and being rejected by countless labels, managers, and music industry insiders, Fitz never gave up his dream. A dream that has produced numerous hit singles, appearances on Conan, The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, Late Night with Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel Live, and Daryl Hall invited the band to perform on his web series, Live from Daryl's House. So cool. Out of My League is pure 80s new wave pop, an incredible lyric and melody mixed with a killer production, thanks to producer Tony Hoffer. So sit back and enjoy. This is a good one.
Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista makes a podcast.
Well, I got to tell you, I was telling my producer Chris before we started rolling, I'm a sucker, okay, for anything new wavy, retro, dance pop, whatever you want to label this song. I'm an 80s kid.
As am I.
We're about the same age, and just all those bands, they were so influential to me, and it's got to be a really, really bad new wave dance song for me not to like it, and this song is anything but that. This song is awesome. You guys have a number of songs. When I started digging, and I'm like, okay, I know this one. Oop, I know this one. And it's interesting. They're all great. It's funny when you go and look at numbers as we do on this show. We sometimes try to figure out the biggest song, but Out of My League, the song we're going to talk about today, seems to be one of the standout tracks for Fitz and the Tantrums.
It has, that was our first number one at alternative radio. Before that, we had only one record that was a little more 60s soul influenced. But the thing that I don't think a lot of people catch on is it's still through a lens of the 80s, because what I loved being an 80s baby as well was all of the 80s artists that were taking the soul, blue-eyed soul, 60s soul movement, and then running it through this filter of the 80s. So to me, that's even our first album had a lot of that 80s influence, but just from a slightly different angle. Yeah, that song was our first number one at radio, and thanks to the crazy interwebs and TikTok and Instagram Reels and all that stuff, the song has had a second, third, and fourth life. It ended up being one of the very first viral sounds when it was purely just sounds that were viral on TikTok at the very beginning. And then it had another sort of viral moment. And then this year it just went to some other crazy level where I don't know what the silly trend was, but it was literally a a woman standing on a street corner, a guy bumps into her, she looks at him like, hey, and then they just start making out. Obviously, they were already in a relationship or whatever with the song playing in the background. And then it was just like every influencer, Bella Hadid did one. And then Justin Timberlake and Jimmy Fallon did their own version of one to the song, you know, for their bromance of bromances.
What was that like? It had to be like a moment of like, what is going on?
Yeah, I mean, we were just seeing all these crazy numbers. The song streaming almost 1 million a day, streams a day, which is just bananas. You know, I mean, it's so cool. It's so cool in this day. You know, I love and hate the internet all at the same time.
Right.
We don't make barely shit for money as musicians anymore, and yet we have people in Uzbekistan that are fans.
Yeah.
You know, we have a song, you know, Out of My League is already 11 years old, I think. Yeah, 11 years old, and it's more popular than ever.
Can I say, and I'm not going to out your exact age, but you know, let's talk about how old you were when this song hit. I mean, that's incredible. And I don't know if you had other projects in the past that were as successful or anywhere near this. To my knowledge, I don't. He's saying no with a big smile on his face. So that's awesome. And I've talked about that a lot. Where, you know, as much as we hate the interwebs and all this stuff, the internet, it's kind of made it a level playing field. Anybody can have a hit. Anybody could go viral at any time. And in the case of Out of My League, it's one of those songs that this isn't the last time that something happens with it. I truly believe that. I think that as long as time keeps going on, another 5 years, something else is going to happen with this song. Another year from now.
Your lips to God's ears, my friend.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
you know,
I mean, you know, it was crazy for me, you know, because I spent over a decade with, I don't know, 6 different bands that I had created, 6 different projects. One was a trip hop artist with a female singer. I mean, I've had so many bands before Fitz and The Tantrums, could not get arrested. Finally, back in like 2000, I had written a very catchy song with my bandmates. And for the first time, we got somebody that was like, I want to be your manager. I was like, wow, that's the first time we couldn't get anybody to even return a phone call. Mm-hmm. And this guy was like, this is a hit song. I want to be your manager. Cut to 2 weeks later, 10 private showcases at SIR, which is the big rehearsal studio in Hollywood. Uh-huh. We're standing on a stage with like a record executive sitting on a couch on this massive stage with all the production, guys on the couch there. We play the song, play the few songs and stuff, and the guy's like, yeah, no, he's too old.
Wow.
Second one, he's too old. Third one, yeah, forget it, he's too old. I was 29 at the time, mind you.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
And I got 10 no's after 10 years of, like, when I say total rejection, I mean total rejection. I couldn't even get anybody to like even respond to one of my demos I sent to a label or whatever. And it was sort of at that moment where I was truly like kind of heartbroken. And I said, I just don't know how much more of this I can take. I need to branch out what I want to do with music. And I knew this one producer, this guy, Mickey P, who funny enough called me today. And Mickey P had done like Midnight Vultures. He did all of the Flight Out of Concord stuff. And I had known him for years and years and years. And I called him up and I said, hey, I want to start working in the studio. Do you need anybody? He's like, no, I'm good. You know, hit me up in a couple months. And I literally called him once a week for a year straight. And every time I was like, no. And then finally, I think on the 365th day of me calling him every week, he was like, all right, fine. Just will you come to the studio, but then you have to leave me alone. And I went to the studio and he didn't realize that I had already been using Pro Tools since it was, I mean, I'm really going to date myself here, but I was using Pro Tools since it was Sound Designer 2.
Oh yeah.
My first hard drive was about this big. It
Yep.
was 1 GB and it cost $1,000. And so I showed up at that studio and I sat down at his Pro Tools rig and I was like, okay, it's done. And he was like, oh, you can stay. And I started working for him. We worked on a couple of albums, like Ladytron album, Mount Sims, a couple of indie artists and stuff, which I really enjoyed. But the whole time I was sitting there and I was thinking, yeah, I don't want to spend my life in a room with no windows for somebody else's music.
Yeah.
And it was sort of at that same time that he started getting these calls from ad agencies being like, hey, I know you did like the Midnight Vultures record stuff. Can you make us a cool piece of music, like in the same world as Beck or something cool like that? And so we started doing that. And then I quickly said to him, I said, I think we should start a music house, a company that does music for film, television, and advertising. And he's like, I don't know. I said, let me run it. We'll be partners on this. We'll build it together, but let me take the lead on it. And we did exactly that. And for 7 years, we did a ton of TV, a ton of commercials and stuff. And it was the first time for me, and by this time it was like 13, 14 years of trying to chase being a musician, where it was the first time that I actually made one single penny off of music, because everything up until that point had been output, print your own CDs, flyers, photos, the whole thing, everything was just an expenditure with not a cent being ever made.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I kind of tiptoed around. It's funny what you can find and what you can't find on the internet. And researching guests here on the show, we've had over, 220 episodes now or whatever it is. Researching, sometimes you'll find, oh, this guy wrote this song for this band and that band. And, I went and looked for stuff, and I knew that, again, because of your age, you had to have been around. You had to have been writing songs. And I figured you were kind of out there doing exactly what you said. I didn't want to assume, but I love the grind. And I think a lot of your success could stem from the fact of how much you were on the forefront of technology and the Pro Tools.
For sure. And that's why I love the technology in that regard, is the autonomy and the power it gives you to, when Aphex Twin can go make a whole record or something, they threw away I think it was Aphex or one of those guys from that era, literally threw away all of their outboard gear, created all the samples from those gears that they liked, put it on a laptop, and he went to Bali and he made a whole friggin' record off, his laptop. And that power is amazing. And even when we started this company, it was a virtual company. We didn't have office spaces. We didn't have anything. And I had started to build it up with Mickey, and the technology afforded us the ability to, especially when you're doing like music for advertising and stuff, they give you a brief. This is what we're looking for. Your deadline's in 3 days from now. And they're expecting like 15 different tracks, 15 to 20 tracks to pick from. And I had the idea. I was like, well, they want dope ass music. They want music that sounds like a real needle drop and not advertising. I want to go hire all of these dope ass musicians that I know that are making contemporary music, that are struggling to make a living. So I went around to all of these people and I said, listen, do you guys want to be freelance composers? When I get a job, I'll pay you a demo fee. You can write a demo. And if the job gets picked, then you'll get, a sizable chunk of the overall budget. And the guys were like, of course. And so me and these other guys, we would just crank out music all the time. But I was literally riding a bicycle through New York City, running the whole entire company from my first generation iPhone, because it was the first time really, besides the Sidekick, where you could email or text an MP3 file and you could listen to it.
Yeah.
Right.
On your bike in the middle of New York City.
Yeah. So I would, I would get a phone call. I'd see it was an ad agency. I would literally step into the lobby of some building, listen to the brief, like yellow but blue. Okay, speed it up but slow it down. And you want it to sound orange. Okay, got it. That's usually how ridiculous the ad agency world is.
Right.
I would type up my brief, email it to the guys. I'd say, you guys have this amount of time to submit it. I would go home. I would make like 5 or 6 tracks as well. And then over the course of the next day or two, the guys would be like, okay, I got my demo done. I was like, great, send it to me. Be riding my bike through New York City. I'd listen to it. I'd call him back. And because I'm a musician as well as being the guy running this company, I'd be like, oh, well, you need to have like a better build on the first 10 seconds, take out the drums and give me like a final moment at 28 seconds or whatever. And the guys would adjust that and we'd go back and forth and I'd upload it to a server. And for 7 years, we crushed it. We had, like I said, I went from making $0 ever, just spending money, to all of a sudden making a really good living, honestly making a lot of money for sitting in my underwear at home, drinking a homemade latte, making beats and running this team of composers or riding a bike through New York City. And then what was it, 2007 when the financial market crashed?
Yeah, 07, 08.
07, 08. It crashes. Also, parallel to that, I've made a lot of money for the last few years. But I'm still feeling like, God, I can't let go of this idea of being an artist. So I made a whole solo record, went to a fancy studio because I could afford to do it, but I was still paying for it all myself.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing ever happened with that. 2 more years later, I still have this itch while I'm running my company with Mickey. And I'm like, I still need to do something. And I started writing these first songs. And those songs were the beginning of Fitz and The Tantrums. And right away, once I wrote them, I would play them for some of my harshest critics, basically other musicians. And they were like, this is different. This is your thing. You have to chase this. And that moment coincided right with the stock market crash. All the corporations were like, we're going to put a pause on everything, advertising. And for like almost 9 months, there was very little activity. And Fitz and The Tantrums just had this magical energy around it that I think I was able to recognize very quickly because I knew what rejection felt like. I knew what getting the door slammed in my face felt like, or not even getting the return phone call. And I think it was within 3 shows we had performed maybe twice at Hotel Cafe in LA, which is not a band venue, certainly not a 6-piece. And maybe one other show, and all of a sudden we got offers to open up for Flogging Molly, Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings. All of a sudden, 2 weeks after that, Adam Levine from Maroon 5 is sitting across from us at School Night, which is this hipster like music venue club that happens in Hollywood once a week. And he was sitting right there. And then 3 days later, we got offered a tour opening up for Maroon 5. So we got all these crazy experiences off of like 5, 6 shows.
I love it.
We didn't even play 10 shows. And everybody's reaction was just jaw on the floor. And I was like, whoa, something different is happening here. Oh my God, we just got Maroon 5's college tour. This is huge. This is the first time we're going to be like going fully national with our band. Oh, wait, it's going to cost us 25 grand to pull this off, between me paying all the guys like $100 a day to be out on the road. And because all the guys in my band, they were all heavy hitters, like road hired guys, you know.
Yeah.
Had played with De La Soul, all these people, they were like pros. And so I was trying to convince them, like, invest in this dream with me, but here's $100 a day to like at least, you know, put gas in your car and not come home totally broke. And we did the budget, rent a Sprinter van, all this stuff, trying to keep up with tour buses. And I was like, yeah, it's going to cost us 25 grand to do this.
That's what it takes sometimes. And I got to tell you, I love a lesson in perseverance. And, you didn't give up on the dream. Before we jump into the track, Fitz, just want to let listeners know your first full length, Picking Up the Pieces, was released on August 24th, 2010. The second album, More Than Just a Dream, was released May 7th, 2013. Out of My League is from that record. The third album that you guys released was self-titled in June of 2016. And your fourth and fifth albums were released in 2019 and 2022, respectively. All the Feels and your fifth album, Let Yourself Free. This song is awesome. It's 3 minutes and 31 seconds.
It's 1 minute too long for 2024.
Well, what is funny you say that, because I went and watched the video. And I was telling Chris, this shows you how nerdy I get into music. I was so excited when I started getting into this episode because I realized that the album is called More Than Just a Dream. The single is Out of My League. It's the first song on the record, one of 12, but the first lyric you hear is More Than Just a Dream. I love things like that. That's not the name of the song. That's the hook in the song, but it's the first lyric. It sets up the tone for everything. So next question is, why was that omitted from the official video that you shot? The intro's different. It's only 4 bars of the verse progression, and then the verse comes in.
Well, you're informing me. Now I'm going to have to do a deep dive on my own stuff because I have no friggin' clue. I think I might know the reason, too, is we had finished the whole entire album. We did it with Tony Hoffer was the producer. I knew that this was our song, or I believed that this was going to be our song that was going to give us a chance at alternative radio. And why did I think that? Because I'm an 80s baby, and I recognize this song as pulling on every 80s heartstring that I had in my body.
Yeah.
And what I was counting on was that every PD, every program director at every radio station probably had similar demo, same age group as me, and same influences, certainly if they were working in alternative radio, and that they were going to respond to that. And it was the truth. That was exactly why. But the reason why that song probably is different from the video is we finished the record, everything. I have a big meeting with Craig Kalman at Atlantic in New York. I sit down, we're listening to the whole album. He's like, okay, all right, I'm digging it. And I said, and I want this to be the single, Out of My League to be the single. He listened to it again. He goes, okay. He's like, I'll back you, but you have to go make it better. Go make it undeniable. And I was like, the album is done. So I booked 4 days with Tony back at his studio. We go back. And we throw everything at the wall, just trying to figure out how can we elevate this song from here to here. And one of the things about that song is it's basically the same drum track. It's like almost like a drum loop that just goes through the whole entire song. So it has a little bit of this linear feel to it. And we had every day we'd try something. We'd be like, we cracked the code, high five, let's go to lunch. And then we'd come back and we'd listen and be like, nope. That just made the song cheesier or worse or whatever. And it was only once we sort of dug into this fact of what the drum track was doing, we're like, okay, well, one of the things we need to do is we need to have the dynamics be felt a little more. So we just basically stole from like pop music world, this sort of all this sort of like impact noises and sounds that I use to help change each transition and build that tension and that release in all of those moments. And I think that was also the moment when we put the More Than Just a Dream just at the beginning. We added more bass. We just tried to like put this thing on steroids, right? And then we send it to the president of the label. He goes, "You did what I asked," and it was. I think I was so annoyed when Craig Kalman said that to me because I was like, how dare you? This is mastered already. But he was right. He's got amazing ears.
That's so interesting. The video went out with the original version because I can't imagine the song without this beginning. It is so awesome. I love the vocal delay and the treatment on your vocals in this song. Again, it just takes me right back to that 80s new wave sound. The track begins. The intro is more than just a dream. It's a heavily delayed vocal, pan left and right. It gets louder, the delay over in the left speaker. It's by itself. And then piano comes in. Bass guitar, is that synth bass that's under this track?
There is a synth bass that comes in on the choruses, but the main thing was trying to create a really melodic, lyrical live bass on there.
Okay, well, it's awesome. There's a light ride cymbal flourishes that happen here for 4 bars. On bar 5, a whooshing synth whoosh begins to
broken down this song. I should listen to it again.
That synth begins to creep up in the mix, and on bar 7 and 8, a build-up drum fill takes us into 8 more bars of piano, drums, bass, tambourine, and sporadic. I call them drum claps. They sound like hand claps, but they're almost like snare claps, and a couple of unison vocals panned all around, doing one of the biggest vocal hooks in the song, those ooh-oohs. They're really loud, but they're panned out left and right. There's a bunch of them. And then another synth crescendo takes us into verse 1.
More than just a dream. More than just a dream.
This song all started with Noelle, my bandmate, brought me the seeds of an idea, but she was thinking, "Oh, this I'm writing this for another artist," and we were deep in writing that record, because when we finished the first album, we had a lot of success, and then we with Money Grabber, and we were on the road for 2.5 years without a break. We came off the road. We took 4 days off. Her and I went and we wrote 40 songs in 40 days and did that album. And she brought me this idea that she was like, "Oh, I want to pitch this to my friend's band." And I listen, I go, "Oh, you're not doing anything with that. We're keeping this, and give me those files right now, and let's build this thing up, and let's make this thing into a full-fledged song. Let's finish." It was like half a song. Let's finish the whole thing. Let's write the bridge. Let's do all this stuff. Because of that moment I was telling you about, where I recognized in this song a hint of 80s. And I was like, I need to take this all the way 80s. With the production.
You certainly did. I mean, it's, as you said, it's kind of every trick in the book here, but it's great because you mentioned that linear drum beat that kind of goes through it. So how are you going to get past that? Where you're going to add dynamics? And I think that's ultimately what your record label was saying. They're like, you got to squeeze every bit you can out of this to get those dynamics, and you absolutely did. But I'm going to read these lyrics. If you don't mind setting them up for us, let us know what's going on here. That'd be awesome. 40 days and 40 nights. I waited for a girl like you to come and save my life. All the days I waited for you. The ones who said I'd never find someone like you.
What I love about this idea, I think it's one of the most relatable ideas. We all have this person that we pine after. And for a lot of us, a lot of times you think that person is beyond your grasp. And what I thought too was, to me, I was like, I think every person in the world wants to feel like somebody feels like I'm out of my league. Like everybody loves that idea of wanting to be the person that's out of my league. And I just thought it was a message. It resonated with me, resonated with Noel. And I thought people would really feel it in a deeply personal way. And it turned out to be exactly one of the main reasons I think that song was a success, was especially women had this crazy connection to that lyric.
Well, you mentioned that you and Noel took 40 days and wrote 40 songs. Does that have anything to do with the opening lyric, 40 days and 40 nights?
Oh, totally. I mean, that was in our thing. I mean, the songwriting's always interesting because you want to say like one thing and then you say it and you're like, well, that doesn't sound right. Or
it doesn't sing right, maybe.
It doesn't sing right. It doesn't sound right. I'm obsessed in the room too with always having this beautiful balance between consonants and vowels. And the most attention that you can give to really making sure that a vocal almost feels like a percussion track.
Yeah.
And you really get that balance between your hard consonants, your K, your oohs, all your vowels, all of that. I think it really lets the song, because I've done it before where I've had one lyric and I'm like, oh, this part's okay. And then you really get into that interplay of making sure that you're saying something great, but that you have that right balance of onomatopoeicness to it. And all of a sudden, the part that was only like maybe a 6 now feels like an 8.5,
Mm-hmm.
Don't come back anytime. I've already had your kind. This is your playback. Money grab, but don't come back.
Hey everybody, don't go anywhere. We got lots more coming up with Fitz after a few words from our sponsors.
Hi, this is Chad Nicefield.
And this is Justin Press.
We're the host of Making Waves, the Shiprock podcast, a part of the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. We're inviting you to sail away with us on an epic journey in musical enlightenment. Every week, we bring you only the best artists in rock music and discuss everything from the cruise, to the stage, to the saga of being a professional recording artist. We'll have lots of special guests along the way, so tune in every week.
Your stateroom is available every Monday morning, so welcome aboard.
Hey there, Krista Makes a Podcast listeners. Ready to take your podcast experience to the next level? By signing up for the supporting cast at KristaMakes.com, you not only ensure the continued production of our show, but also unlock exclusive perks. Subscribers receive a weekly bonus episode of our other podcast, The After Party, co-hosted by Chris Fafalius and myself. Many fans rave that The After Party is just as enjoyable as the main show. And with close to 200 music-centric episodes in the archive, there's a treasure trove of entertainment awaiting you. Thank you for tuning in and for your support in keeping the podcast going strong. Join us at KristaMakes.com and let's keep the fun conversations going.
And now, back to the show.
Well, you mentioned producer Tony Hoffer earlier. He's worked with The Thrills, Beck, Supergrass, Air, nominated for 7 Grammys. And it sounds like in verse 1 here, is that lead vocal double? Do you recall?
Yes, I'm sure it is. And also we wanted like a super trashy, semi-spring reverby, just...
Yeah, again, I talked about it right from the top. I love the delay. The vocal treatment on the track is great. There's a new synth part here in verse 1 that comes in. It's like a new sound halfway through the verse. After the line, all the days I waited for you, there's a few more piano notes that are subtly added here on the back half of verse 1. And at the end of the verse, we get a couple of synth stabs that bring us into chorus 1. And I noted the bass tone and the note choices here are just A+. So good. This sounds like it's possibly triple lead vocals or more. It just gets so full. It is so cool here.
Yeah, well, and the thing is Noel and I, there's 2 singers in the band. but we didn't always want to do harmonies because harmonies, they conjure a certain mood or a certain feeling. So there was a lot of times where Noel and I would sing things in unison, which isn't usually done. But what we found was and this was our first experience with it, and then we repeated it many, many times because we found when her and I sing in unison, it becomes like a super vocal because it has almost all the frequencies in it from top to bottom. And so when we started doing it, this was the song that we sort of developed that technique of creating this super vocal, of blending our two vocals, singing certain parts together at the same time. And that chorus hits so hard, certainly, especially when we do it live. I mean, it just is supposed to be a sledgehammer to your head.
And that's exactly what it does. We get big keyboard pads on the 1, 2, and 3. It's left off of the 4th time. It's 16 bars total. Are the guitars hitting here stereo as well in the choruses?
Yeah.
Okay, there is guitars that come in there. Those sound absolutely awesome. I'm going to read the lyrics here, if you don't mind talking about these.
Yeah.
'Cause you were out of my league. All the things I believed. You were just the right kind. Yeah, you were more than just a dream. You were out of my league. Got my heartbeat racing. If I die, don't wake me, 'cause you were more than just a dream.
Yeah, I mean, there's the message of the whole entire song. And this was really the part that I felt like was relatable, but also enviously relatable, where people want to have people think this about them, right?
Well, the thing about Out of My League, I didn't search. There may have been other bands that have done it, but I can't think of a song with that title. And how many times have you heard that phrase? It's such a great title, but man, I would have wrestled with, and did anybody from the label say, we got to call this song More Than Just a Dream?
No, in fact, I would say that Craig Kalman, when he heard it, that was his one beef. He didn't think it was a saying more than just a dream at the end was enough of a button hook.
Interesting.
He was making a pitch that it needed to be something bigger, something more memorable. He didn't think that was the end all be all hook. That was the same meeting where he's like, well, if you want this song to be great, the single, then go make it undeniable. But that was the one thing I stood my ground on. I was like, you're wrong.
Interesting, because that is a featured line in the chorus. We were talking about harmonies a second ago. More than just a dream, the first and second time is the only harmonies really in the song.
Yeah.
And it's and I love what the harmonies are doing there. They're kind of panned in a stereo thing. It is so cool. Another thing that just tugs at my heartstrings. Just little subtleties like this. The second half of the chorus, when you go up an octave just on the word my. It's so good.
It's a high one to sing every night.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, those are one of those notes you get in the studio and then you go to play it live and you're like, why did I do that? But man, was that how it was written? Was that something that Tony Hoffer said, hey, maybe try this? Or was that something you came up with?
No, we when we were finished, when we had the first demo, and we were doing it. We definitely tweezed. We were like, okay, your ear needs some tiny little adjustment here on the back end of the chorus. Your ear is craving to get out of these notes for 1 second. So that's how we came to that.
I love it. I love the harmonies. At the very end here, a synth sweep up swoosh, and the sound happens, and we go into another 8 bars of that ooh vocal re-intro. The keys, percussion, drums, and vocals all feel fuller here than the intro for me. I think there might be mixed or the way they're EQ'd something, I A-beat them like 10 times. And I love when I can't tell what it is, but I can feel it. That's so awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think we had thinned out that intro so that there wasn't too much low end or anything, so that the chorus wouldn't be robbed when you got to it.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
So that's definitely, I know we did that, so that's probably why that next re-intro feels bigger to you.
It's so cool. Well, the synth swoosh here is definitely way louder and more dramatic. And then we get into verse 2, and I love the new instrumentation violin that comes in here on verse 2. Super clean, jangly guitar panned off to the right. It's so awesome. And then we get, after the second line, this like ghostly like synth swirl that happens.
From time to time I pinch myself because I think my girl mistakes me for somebody else. And every time she takes my hand, all the wonders that remain become a simple fact.
From time to time, I pinch myself because I think my girl mistakes me for somebody else. And every time she takes my hand, all the wonders that remain become a simple fact. And you were just talking about that. My girl mistakes me. She has to mistake me for somebody else. I'm not this good looking, right? She's out of my league.
Exactly. And it's just trying to double down on that sentiment, and I like this idea of like a little bit of jealousy or like being threatened comes in there. I think for me, it just made the song more relatable.
I love that line, and that line didn't stick out at me before you explained it, and now it just jumped right off the paper. That's so awesome. After the line, and every time she takes my hand, a new synth sound, almost sounds like a flute, comes in there. And I noticed one of your band members, James King, is credited as playing saxophone, flute, keyboard, percussion, and guitar. Was that a synth flute sound, or was that an actual flute there in verse 2?
On verse 2, hold on. Now I got to bring it up so I can know what the hell you're talking about.
See, I've never had a guest on here, Fitz, if it makes you feel better. Never once have they listened to their hit song before they sat in the hot seat. They're just going by, memory of recording or whatever. They sit here and they go, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Because as you listen to them 10 million times and then you never listen. Although I was at the dentist yesterday and it came on in the dentist's office and I tried to use it to my advantage to not wait as long, but it did me no good.
I'm sure it didn't. Yeah. And I'm sure the bill was the same, if not more.
Oh, exactly. All right. No, that's not. That's a synth. And see, this was all very controversial in the band at the moment that we were making this whole record because we had been, like I said, I knew it had an 80s influence in it. But for most people, and even for a lot of the people in our band, we were just doing throwback soul. And so this record was very scary for a lot of people. Our managers, including half the band, some of the label, because I was introducing a lot of new elements that were out of character from what that first record was. The style of music was way more 80s influenced, this whole record, because I was like, all right, couple things. Was one, I was so tired of hearing the word throwback soul. It was like you could not say our name without them saying that in the breath. But it was I almost felt like it was a little dismissive, like where it's like, yeah, they're doing this throwback. And I was like, oh, I'm going to show you motherfuckers. And I'm going to do 80s music, which is my number one influence in my entire life. I grew up in LA, K-Rock in the 80s. Every 80s band was broken by our radio station here in LA. It was the preeminent place to find all things new wave, new romantic, ska, all that shit, right?
106.7 K-Rock.
And so I was like on a mission to broaden what we were doing because I also was seeing people like Sharon Jones and these other people, and they were getting kind of stuck in a niche or people were forcing them. And I wanted more for us. I didn't want that to be the one line about our band was with throwback soul for one more time. So when we were making that, like that part that you think is the flute is a synthesizer, people were very nervous about all these modern elements I was bringing into the song. We'll get there eventually, but the end of the song has the chopped vocal.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And when I did that, literally the band looked at me and goes, you can't do that. And I said, why the fuck not?
That's the only part to me that really sounds like, okay, this doesn't really sound like it comes from the 80s. This sounds more current, but the flute sounds and the things you're talking about, I heard a lot of this stuff on 80s records. It doesn't sound that out of the box to me. But as you know, fear is a big component in bands. You know, it can limit you to want to move forward. And there's times when you do move forward, make that big jump and it doesn't work. And then you get the naysayers, told you it wouldn't work. So, you know, all these calculated steps we do in bands, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't.
When we had the first record, we were Soul. We had Out of My League album, More Than Just a Dream album. And instantly, like, the haters came out. Why didn't they just make a record like that first one? I love that record. And we definitely lost some fans in that transition. And then my favorite was people like, look at them. They're jumping on the 80s bandwagon. And I was like, no, you're jumping on my friggin' bandwagon because I grew up with this shit, not you. And so I doubled down on it. I went for it. And I'm so glad I did because it turned out to be the right choice.
I love a great success story. Also in verse 2, we get like this double hand clap effect that happens here. And on the last line, become a simple fact. A simple fact is by itself with like this synth sub effect running underneath. It's the only time you hear it in the song. That's another thing I love about songs, and you really get away with this in dance, electronica, and new wave type of stuff, is you can introduce just a sound in that doesn't come in again. And that's kind of what I think about that one. We go right into chorus 2, same overall instrumentation and lyrics as chorus 1. We get the same harmonies on the More Than Just a Dream. And we also get these ch-ch hand claps, and they're louder in this chorus for sure. Just the hand claps being louder in chorus 2. It's a great subtle dynamic to make the chorus feel bigger and slightly different, but you didn't reinvent the wheel here. You know, it's just those hand claps came up, and just that I'm like, and of course I'm A-B in the chorus to go, what feels different here? I'm like, the hand claps, just that little thing. And I'm sitting here smiling ear to ear because that gets me going, little things like that. We get into, after chorus 2, probably my favorite part of the song. It's a 16-bar bridge. We get those ooh vocals here. That is such a big hook of the song, but it's over a new chord arrangement.
Just a dream.
And I got to ask you, Fitz, do you know any other songs with the chord arrangement of the bridge? Because I always pick up a guitar and go through the songs. I'm like, oh, this is cool. I want to see if you even pick up on your own song.
Of what the chords are that I'm playing?
Yeah, in the bridge. Yeah. So it's a major, 2 minors in a row, and then it finishes on a major there. So it's,
yeah, I mean, I don't even remember what key, but I know it's just an ascending
right
chord progression, just rising, which to me, because I'm a huge dance music lover. I was a huge 80s Yaz, all the 80s stuff. And then I never stopped with it. And I've always had like this parallel love of dance music, even into the Prodigy world, all of that stuff, like Square Pusher, and you see it in our music. To me, one of the main requirements is got to make you shake your butt. It's got to make you want to chair dance at the bare minimum.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, Fitz, the bridge, and, I always tell people this. There's only 12 notes. There's only so many chord progressions that you can come up with. But it was interesting. I started playing this, and it's Boys Don't Cry from The Cure. It's a different key from their song, but it's the ascending riff in that.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that the oohs are over this part, man, I'm a sucker for that too. Hey, let's take the same vocal, but let's change what's happening underneath it. It is so killer. The organ is here as well as, and the organ's panned off left in this part. I'm also hearing like a xylophone or tubular bells there. Is that what I'm hearing?
Please hold.
He's listening again, folks. He's got the trusty phone up to his ear.
No, I think those were all synths, because Tony had an amazing, like he had the MS-20. He just has all of his synthesizers.
Well, looking at the band members and what they play, I was like, I wonder how much of this stuff is synths, or if these guys are like purists, like we got to make our own sounds and mess with them with effects and whatnot. It sounded like Tubular Bells or something other. It is so cool.
Oh, I think it's the DX7's Tubular.
DX7. Okay.
Probably.
And of course, the DX7 was what all those bands tracked the bass on back in the day. We had Howard Jones on talking about New Song. We had him on the show and celebrating 40 years of that song last year. And of course, we talked about the DX7 in his episode and a couple other bands. I had Glass Tiger on here. They use the DX7 on Don't Forget Me When I'm Gone. Another amazing song. But finger snaps are here. Tambourine, bass guitar, a shaker for the first 4 bars on bar 5. I'm calling it a gunshot, Fitz. It's like left to right, like a ricochet.
Yeah, and we use those all through the song, and those are basically just spring reverb, like off of a guitar.
Yeah, you hear that a lot in old Jamaican reggae ska.
Exactly. So we use them as like, as impact moments to try and help all the transitions.
I love it. On bars 9 through 16, we get another gunshot. The drums are now in and sporadic hand clap sounds, followed by one measure of just probably that spring reverb I'm hearing over a single tambourine. It's awesome to lead us into chorus 3. What was up with that one measure there? It didn't have to be there, but it's so cool. It just builds this like 2 seconds of tension before we launch.
Well, I mean, you said it. It builds tension and it helps with the dynamics, and it just creates this almost, that's not a full vacuum moment because there's still elements playing, but it has a similar effect and everything pulls away. And what I like, all of a sudden you're just so micro focused on the tambourine sound.
Yeah.
And the song drops for the biggest chorus of the song.
And it is the biggest chorus, and I absolutely love what happens here. Same overall instrumentation as the previous 2 choruses, but we have the same lyrics, but we now get a new ooh-ooh vocal hook. It's not the same as before. It's very similar. It's in the ballpark of the other one, but it changes, and it is so cool.
It's a little more doo-woppy too.
Yes, a variation of the hook. I would agree. More doo-woppy. We still get the harmonies on More Than Just a Dream, and let's talk about those one more time. Where those are placed. Again, emphasis on more than just a dream on that lyric. It's interesting. The label guy didn't really think that's such a hook to me when that harmony happens there, because it's the only time you hear it. It just makes me go, it's so good. Coming out of chorus 3. We go into what I'm calling the post-chorus. It's the same chords here. We get a new jangly guitar panned off left. Sounds like a single open note almost, like is ringing out there on that jangly guitar. Again, building kind of this tension there. And we get these, I call them detuned vocals, like root, root, root. There's higher ones there, processed. So I'm assuming you sang them and then you just started affecting them and messing with them.
No, I literally took one of them and I loaded it into a keyboard and then played it on a keyboard. That's why it's because it's literally tracking the keyboard scale.
Oh, wow.
And like I said, that was the moment when I was like, I want to do this thing. And everybody was like, you can't do this. And I was like, why not? It's cool as fuck.
Yeah, no, it is. I thought for sure they were just sung and processed. The fact that you fed them into the keyboard is killer.
Tony was amazing on that record because he really pushed us to use all of the tools in his studio. So many amazing vintage synths, so many amazing racks. You know, he had a sidecar compression. That's how come the drums sound so crunchy and badass, you know, just because he's driving the hell out of them through his sidecar.
Oh, they sound so good.
And stuff, you know, it's like he really pushed us to use all of those sounds. And, you know, we don't have a guitar player in the band. And the first album, we had not one guitar part on the whole entire album. So for us to include even just a down, down, down was a big deal. Everybody thought that I was out of my mind when we were making this song.
Well, you kind of are, but that's where genius is born sometimes, right? The ooh vocals here on this part are only at the ends of each figure. They're not through the whole post-chorus, and they're lower in the mix than before here, which is awesome. You still have continuity of those oohs, but they're not taking over. They're still there, but they're mixed back here. Those more vocals happen in 4 cycles. So it's like more happening on the left and right. And after each one of those, we get the refrain of More Than Just a Dream. Then, on top of all this, the song could have beautifully ended there. I still think it would have been a hit. But you go into this outro, this little coda part, that's killer because you change back to the root note of C here, which just, it's great because you've been in this world now with the post-chorus, continuing from chorus 3. And the outro, the band switches to that C chord at the start. It's the same C chord that starts at the start of the bridge, which I think that is so cool that you kind of brought the bridge back here at the end with that chord change. The oohs are here with finger snaps, tambourine, hand claps, and what I'm calling a synth hangover then happens for 2 bars. You kind of hear this synth, and it's just a cappella, those oohs, and then they kind of have this 2 or 3 second gated verb on them, and the song comes to an end. It was an absolute, it was an absolute blast to break this one down. I love how every band has growing pains. Every band has these things that you're talking about. And it's interesting when you talk to bands about it, sometimes they're like, you know, you think like, what's the big deal? You're like, oh, my band was really resistant. And I don't hear stuff here that's too crazy. I mean, this song is just so awesome. I got to ask, what do they think about it after the fact? What did they think about it when it was put together?
I mean, everybody was ecstatic. I think it just was, you know, coming from where we were on that first record, it just took a little time for people. You know, we had so much pressure on us. You know, we had this viral moment, word of mouth moment, building this band. We had AAA radio just going crazy for Money Grabber. It was the song that launched our whole entire career. And, you know, I had so much fear of failure going into making that second record that's why Noel and I, we just worked our butts off to try and make a collection of songs that felt right. But in that, we took some risks, and I think it took people just a couple seconds to understand it and trust the process. And then when they heard the finished product, I think everyone was on board. And then, you know, and then that song, I don't know if it still holds the record, but back in the day, it held the record for longest ascension to number 1 at alternative radio. It took 36 weeks to get to number 1.
The slow crawl, man. I love it.
Is what you want, baby.
Hey, I love your story. I love the perseverance. Congratulations on all your past success and future success. Speaking of, what do you got coming up with Fitz and the Tantrums?
We are on the road for a long time, for like 7 weeks this summer. We've been doing a ton of gigs. We grinded really hard last summer and last fall. We did back-to-back tours. And then this spring, we've just been sort of doing one-offs here and there and writing music. And then, we're doing whole summer of touring this summer. And then we'll probably get back in earnest into like really trying to figure out what the next album will be in the fall. Awesome.
Well, hey, thanks for carving out some time for us here. I really appreciate it.
Oh man, thanks so much for such an amazing time. Nobody's ever analyzed any of my songs to that level.
Run the city from the rooftops. 'Cause today's gonna be my
Man, that was a super inspiring episode. I was already a fan of Fitz and the Tantrums, but I think I'm even a bigger fan now. I can't wait to talk to Chris about all of this in the rap segment that's coming up right after a few words from our sponsors, so don't go anywhere.
When you need to work quickly and confidently across different apps and platforms, consistent quality communication is key. Whether you're writing documents, emails, or presentations, you need Grammarly. It's an AI writing partner that helps you get your work done faster with better writing. It's always there to help because it works where you work, across 500,000 apps and websites, so you can get more done no matter where you're writing. Grammarly is the gold standard of responsible AI, trusted by millions of professionals for 15 years. It gives you personalized writing suggestions based on your audience, goals, and context, plus tone suggestions to help you navigate even the most difficult work conversations. 96% of users agree. Grammarly helps them craft more impactful writing. Sign up and download Grammarly for free at Grammarly.com/podcast. That's GRAMMARLY.com/podcast. Grammarly. Easier said, done.
Hey friends, have you been loving Krista Makes a Podcast? Well, spread the love by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Don't hesitate to share what you enjoy about the show in an actual written review on Apple Podcasts. Not only does it help more people discover us, but we often read reviews in the rap segment of the show. It's a quick, cost-free way to support us and takes just a minute of your time. Your reviews mean the world to us and help us keep the podcast thriving. Thank you for being a listener, and thank you for being a friend.
As we near the end of the show, here's a band you might not know.
Welcome to this week's Band You Might Not Know. If you'd like your band to be considered for Krista Makes a Podcast, email your best song via MP3 only and a short bio to bandyoumightknow@gmail.com. This week's featured artist is Virginity, an indie power pop band from Orlando, Florida. They have a brand new album out on Smart Punk Records called Bad Jazz. The band consists of Casey Crawford on vocals, Jordan Schroyer on bass, Chris Pfister on guitar, and Jim Dreffen on drums, who also produces the band. Here's a snippet of their song, Swinging South.
Everyone else thinks, conceal and carry all your burdens, even where you cannot see. You can hide it from yourself. You can hide it from yourself. You can hide it from yourself, but you can't hide it from me.
The Wrap with Chris and Chris.
Chris, I love that episode. I think that was one of the best stories of perseverance, and it was so cool that Fitz just kept sharpening his skills as an engineer and a producer and a songwriter every way he could until he finally found the right circumstances and group of musicians to take a real shot at it, and it all paid off.
He was practicing his craft. It was like an artist with a sketchbook that he started when he was 4 years old, and you just watch the progression. You know, here he was, Chris, at 29 years old being told. And I remember when I was about to turn 30 going, man, am I too old for this? I remember having that thought. And here I am now 20 years after the fact. But here he was being told he was too old. But at the same time, the A&R person or manager was saying, but these songs are great. You wonder why he didn't shop his songs then. And there's some people that are like, no, these are my words, my creations. I'm singing these songs. He was close to 40 years old when he finally broke. I love that.
Yeah, it's awesome. And the too old at 29 thing just sounds ridiculous. Maybe here's what I'll say. Too old to be a pop star. Were any of us, I don't know, I don't think I was. I don't think you were trying to be a pop star. We were trying to be in rock bands, and I don't think it's ever too late to write a great song, especially now more than ever.
Now more than ever, for sure. The TikTok and the way things are, how things go viral now. It's leveled the playing field. You could, you put a great product, great song out. You don't know what's going to happen to it. It gets attached to some silly video, and boom.
Once again, his story is the ultimate story of a career musician, a lifer who found his own path and his own way. No two stories, as we know, Chris, from doing this podcast and just from life. No two artists' stories are the same. How they got to where they were. Some people, it might be from years of touring. Some people may have gotten a song in a commercial or a movie. It could be who you know. It could be how much legwork you put in. But no two stories are the same. And I love his story where it was just, I worked hard, and I just think that's really cool. He had the dream of being an artist the whole time, and here he is. He's an artist. He's still putting out great music.
It's awesome, yeah. And I've told so many musicians this. You know, they've been down on their luck. Just, man, I've been trying to get this band going, these songs, and I just tell them, hey, you know, you are so passionate. You are so good about, you know, with music, there's so many things you can do. And I have seen a lot of people like that. They wish they were the guy on stage. They wish they were the face in the magazines and the guy on the radio, the person on the radio. But they're working in the music business. They're excelling at it. I have friends of mine that are, you know, huge figures in the music industry. So, but at the same time, Fitz wanted to be that guy on stage. He never gave up the dream.
Yeah, and you talk about good fodder for songwriting. The struggle, man. If you're still out there in the struggle, in my opinion, you're going to write better songs. I know there are exceptions of multi-millionaire famous people writing great songs, but I think the great songs come when you're down, working side hustles to make money and digging a ditch and then going home and writing a song. I think that's where the truly great stuff comes. So just my opinion.
No, I don't think it's your opinion. I think that's been echoed many times, Chris. Remember Dee Snider? He's like, he went to write the follow-up to the big album, We're Not Gonna Take It, was on. And he's sitting by his words. I'm sitting by my pool in Beverly Hills, and I'm not angry. What am I going to write about?
Exactly.
But I'll tell you what I'm not angry about, Chris.
What's that?
I'm not angry about those 5-star reviews that are pouring in. I mean, pouring in.
Yeah, it's really nice that everyone's been leaving us reviews. I mean, we've been asking for them lately, but we love to read them. I thought maybe I'd read another one here that we got on Apple Podcasts, which we highly encourage everyone out there. Go. You can leave them on Spotify too. Leave us a 5-star review so people can go read those reviews and be like, hey, I want to check out that podcast. But here's one this week from Mr. Cap, who said, this is the best podcast for anyone who loves music. Of course, Mr. Cap gave us 5 stars and wrote, I enjoy this podcast so much. It's the only one I listen to regularly. If you want to learn more than you ever wanted to know about some of your favorite songs or get introduced to new songs, as well as grow a deeper respect for many of the guest artists, then give this a listen. Plus, Chris and Chris are great. What can I say, Chris, except thank you, Mr. Cap. Thanks for saying we're great. You're great, too.
Thank you so much for the review. And yeah, man, keep them coming, right, Chris?
That's right. We really like those. And we really like getting great guests. That helps us get great guests like this week's guest, Fitz. Man, I love Fitz. He's super cool.
He was awesome. And if you haven't already, please join our supporting cast, where you get bonus episodes of another podcast Chris and I do called The After Party. That's right. Head over to chrisdemakes.com. And while you're at it, heck, join the Chris DeMakes or follow the Chris DeMakes podcast Instagram page that my wonderful producer and friend here, Chris Fafalius, updates constantly, puts great clips up there. And yeah, tell everybody about it. And I want to thank this week's guest, Fitz, for sitting in the hot seat. We'll see you next week.
One Hit Thunder is a podcast where we both celebrate and have a good laugh about bands and artists that had just one hit that we all know. Each week, we're joined by a guest from the world of music or comedy to learn more than you ever thought you would about some songs that you can't forget. And we decide if they brought the one-hit thunder or were nothing more than a one-hit blunder. Look, if you listen to the show, you're probably going to laugh, and I guarantee you're going to crush next time the bar has music trivia. Tag Team, Jane Child, Meredith Brooks, Looking Glass, Sean Mullins, Eiffel 65, EMF, Crash Test Dummies, Crazy Town, Chumbawamba. We have hundreds of episodes in our back catalog and a new episode each week, so pass the Dutchie, make sure you're connected, and subscribe to One Hit Thunder wherever you get your pods.
I don't think it overstates things to say that the Beatles were the greatest gift to entertainment and culture of our time, a secular religion, if you will, with their universal appeal and demonstrable impact on people's lives. I'm Robert Rodriguez, host of Something About the Beatles. With every episode, I speak with historians, musicians, artists, and Beatle witnesses. all in the service of fresh insights into the most joyous cultural entity the world has ever known. I hope you'll join me and listen to Something About the Beatles, now on Evergreen and wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Daniela Clark.
I'm Barbara Ann Wild.
And we are the Honest AF Show.
Our podcast is real, honest conversation with our celebrity friends and pros.
Covering our anything but average rock and roll lifestyles.
All while tackling the hell that is aging and the battle of beauty.
Oh yeah, nothing is off the table.
The Honest AF Show is available wherever you get your podcasts.